That's Senator Mike Lee warning his fellow Republicans back in November not to vote for a spending bill if the GOP wins control of the House. But 18 of his Republican Senate colleagues didn't listen, and they helped the Democrats pass an omnibus bill right before the Christmas break. Joining me now in an exclusive interview, Republican Congressman Pat Fallon from Texas, a member of the Oversight Committee who voted against the bill. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us on Sunday Morning Futures. I got to tell you, this monstrosity of a bill, it happened just very similar to when I was first in Congress. And Nancy Pelosi, she waits till December 23rd, and then she passes through these big bad bills. But I am just fundamentally not understanding why the Senate even decided to take it up. They didn't have to.
You know, Jason, it boggles the mind. I mean, at the last minute, this is Nancy Pelosi's MO, as you just said, a 4,155-page bill shoved down our throats at the last minute in a lame duck session, and it's just littered with pork. There's $12 billion additionally for the IRS, and the IRS, that agency just got $80 billion in the inflation, what I call the Inflation Enhancement Act. And there's a relief and work agency of the UN. They have a history of anti-Semitic literature and also producing pro-terrorism materials. This bill gives that agency $65 million. About $3 million for a beef-friendly highway and $3 million for a LGBTQ museum in New York. It was an absolute piece of garbage, and that's why I voted not only no, but hell no.
Well, look, we have some pressing issues in this country. We have the border. We have energy issues. We have inflation issues. Are there things in this bill? I mean, I don't think that they address those top issues. As it relates to the border, it looked like overseas, more people got money to protect themselves overseas in their borders than we did at our own border.
Yeah, there was nearly $500 million for securing the border in countries like Egypt and Jordan and Oman, and nothing for our border. It did include $800 million to shelter illegals, and also hundreds of millions of dollars for the NGOs that have helped facilitate this catastrophe. The funding for ICE enforcement and removal was flat, and it woefully underfunded the Customs and Border Patrol. I mean, Jason, this problem is about 1,000% worse than it was under President Trump. There were 234,000 illegal border crossers in April. That was 1,258% worse than the last April President Trump was in office. And in May, it was 241,000, which was 930% worse. So the problem is 1,000% worse. And Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats' solution? Increase Border Patrol agents by 1%. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. It's a gross dereliction of duty.
You're a congressman from Texas, took over the seat that was held by John Ratcliffe, the director of national intelligence, a good friend of mine from my service there in Congress with him. But just in the last 72 hours, the Biden administration has again argued in court that Title 42 has it's not viable and that they're not going to support it. Plus, in Arizona, the Coronado National Forest, they're forcing Governor Ducey and the Arizonas to take away the border wall that they had put in place. How do they argue this with a straight face when they see the pictures of these people pouring across the border?
Because, Jason, they are catering to the far left in their party. And they're not, it's a de facto open border right now. We have 160 countries represented by people that have been crossing the border illegally. We caught 98 people on the terrorist watch list. Drugs and the cartels are being, it's unbelievable the policies that Joe Biden put in place to empower the cartels. Because it was 28,000 pounds of fentanyl have been seized since Joe Biden has been in office. We lost 107,000 Americans last year to opioid overdoses, 80,000 to fentanyl. Most of the fentanyl is made in China and ferried through Mexico. This is, basically, this is asymmetrical warfare being waged by the communist Chinese on our country. And Joe Biden, Jason, doesn't have the guts to even bring it up to Xi Jinping when he talks to him.
Look, if somebody is coming here and they go to a port of entry and they want to claim asylum, that's the legal, lawful way to do it. But the cartels are pushing them not through the ports of entry. They're pushing them up the middle so that when they get detained, they're supposed to be, under the law, detained, incarcerated, fined, and deported. And they're not doing that at all. And we see these numbers coming across by hundreds of thousands. All right, I got to move to another topic because I get kind of fired up about that one. But I want to talk about the power of the purse. You're on the oversight committee, and I used to be the chair of that committee. And nothing drove me just more bonkers than the appropriators going and giving these agencies money when they're not complying with the oversight request. So the Federal Bureau of Investigation, they got hundreds of millions, or I should say the Department of Justice got hundreds of millions of dollars more money, and yet we're having all these problems. How are you going to try to tackle that?
Well, just as you said, we need to use the power of the purse. We need to be painting with bold colors, as President Reagan said, and not soft pastels. These agencies will continue to do what they're doing unless we show them that there's going to be consequences to the action. If you have information requested by Congress, you better darn well comply. And if you don't, there's going to be repercussions. But if they say, it's just like a child, right? If you tell them to stop doing something and there's no repercussions and it's just saying, stop it, they're going to keep doing it and doing it. And that's what we've seen. And that's what the American people, by the way, Jason, voted for. The Republicans, we won the popular vote by over 3.5 million votes. So the American people want a new direction in this country as well.
I want to put up the graphic of the 18 Republican senators who voted for this monstrosity. These are the people that you can go and you can write questions and you can call and say, hey, what in the world were you doing? 18 Republicans, there they are. The reason this bill came about, the reason it passed, those people. If they vote no, this bill doesn't move forward, and you have the cavalry coming over the hill with Republicans in control of the House, and that bill would look a whole lot better, but it didn't happen that way. Congressman Pat Fallon, thank you so much for joining us on Sunday Morning Futures. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you very much. All right, we recently